get started because we would love to hear from our speakers. So, I am Nina. I am ATP's Director of Communications, and I am very excited to welcome you to today's Education Division Coffee Chat. We're really glad that you're here. Just want to preface that this is a coffee chat, and we want you guys to chat with us. We want you to share your thoughts, your opinions. We want you to share that via chat, or if you want to raise your hand and speak, you can do so, but we would love for this to be a collaborative conversation. So these chats, they were originally designed to offer professional development opportunities to people who were newer to the assessment industry, but we also really like to have industry experts on the call because we like to hear varying perspectives in addition to our speakers. Speaking of our speakers, we have a lot of industry experts with us today, and so we're really excited to be joined by the leadership of our education division. So we have Debi Crimmins, who is our chair. We have Walt Drane, who is our vice chair. We have Matthew Gushta, who is our secretary, and then we have Jesse Markow, who was division chair for 2 years. And so they're going to introduce themselves a little bit in a minute, but I do want to tell you a little bit more about ATP for those of you who may not be familiar. So we are the Global Trade Association for the assessment industry, and we are dedicated to promoting and advancing best practices in testing and assessment. So we do that through advocacy and we do it through education. So these coffee chats are just part of that educational mission, and they are open to members and non-members, and they just offer a space for us to connect, learn, grow, discuss important conversations. So thank you guys so much for joining us today. And now we are going to get on to introducing our amazing speakers. So we're going to start with Debi.
Thanks, Nina. Good morning, everybody. How's my sound?
Great.
We're doing okay. Nothing like trying to do something like this from a hotel lobby area. So I'm glad you're hearing me. If you're not, you just tell me. I see Frank nodding, so that's good. I'm Debi Crimmins. As Nina said, I'm honored to be the chair for the education division. Those were big shoes to fill, as I learned all I could for the last 2 years from Jesse, and we're forever grateful for what he's taught us and helping to kind of reignite the education division. In my day job, I'm the Senior Vice President for Global Client Advocacy and Marketing at Prometric, which means I have the honor of taking care of, with an amazing team, all of our clients around the world to make sure that they're healthy, happy, and whole when it comes to being successful in their journeys as well. But I think why this fits so well for me, and I know, Nita, I'm not supposed to go on and on, but I love that this is the education division. My background came from teaching. So I was a teacher, a principal, an associate soup, and a newly learning assessment person in the later years of my life. So I am really honored to be in this role and to work with so many amazing colleagues and finding a home at ATP. So thanks for joining us today and having this conversation. And I think, Nina, I move it over to Walt now, right?
Absolutely. Thank you, Debi.
Hey, good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, wherever you're located. My name is Walt Drane. I'm the Director of Education Services at Cavion Test Security, and for ATP, I serve as the co-chair, and I'll be rolling into that chair position in January. So I'm learning
Yes,
all
you
I
would.
can from Debi and Jesse and crew as I'll take those reins, yeah, later on. Also, like Debi, I started my career as an educator, so taught elementary school, also taught junior high school. I was a high school principal and also was the executive director of statewide assessment and statewide accountability at the Mississippi Department of Education before coming to Cavion about 8 years ago. I'll throw it over to Matthew.
All right, thanks, Walt. Hi, everyone. I'm Matthew Gusta. I'm the Senior Director of Research and Psychometrics at Metametrics, and here today I'm the Secretary of the Education Division at ATP. Now, that means I'm the newest member of the division and not just the new to the group, but and they've all been tremendously welcoming and helpful, especially well, Nina's been great, and she continues to be great today. But I'm also really new to ATP. This is my first year being involved with ATP, and I'm excited to be here to be able to expand opportunities to share experiences and connect with other professionals in the educational assessment space. I've been in this world for over 20 years. I play a psychometrician on TV. I've had roles on the vendor side of statewide K-12 assessment, worked in products on early literacy, early numeracy, and now in my role at Metametrics, I lead teams that make connections between, if you're familiar with the Lexile and Quantile frameworks, on a variety of corporate and statewide assessments, both domestically and globally, hoping to connect students to materials, reading and math materials. So that's a little bit about me. And of course, then there's the illustrious Jesse Markow. I'll toss it over to him.
Oh, wow. I'll leave now. Quit while I'm ahead. No, I'm Jesse Markow. I'm an independent consultant and past chair for the second time of the Education Division. And by the way, unless there is no automatic muting, so you need to mute and unmute yourselves to participate in the discussion today. So I just thought I'd put that out there then. I taught school for 14 years, mostly middle school and high school and college, and worked in testing with John for 5 years at Riverside and then another 5 years at ETS K-12 before joining the WIDA consortium right when it left being a grant organization to being operational at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. I was assessment director there. Most of my time, I was director of strategy and business development. I described that role as bringing in money and having 120 other people spending it. So I've worked with a lot of state and local and intermediate administrative offices in my career. And I'm so happy to see 40 people now on our participant list. This is incredible. And thank you for supporting our work.
Thank you, Jesse. Do you see like the amazing people that we have leading our divisions? Very grateful for our volunteers who spend their time to put together things like this to have these important conversations. So thank you all very much for presenting today. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started with the discussion. I do have a couple of housekeeping things. If you click more at the bottom of your screen, you can click show captions. It'll show captions in 40 different languages. So if you would like to use that tool, that is there. As Jesse hinted at, we do want to make sure we stay muted during the coffee chat. If you would like to contribute to the conversation, you definitely can just raise your hand and then we'll call on you. And you can always use the chat if you have a question or if you have any comments. And then we will have 10 to 15 minute Q&A at the end for anyone who wants to hold their questions. So let's go ahead and get started. We're actually going to have Matthew explain a little bit about today's discussion and the survey that's coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Nina, and thanks for all the introductions, and thank you all for joining us today, depending on what time zone you're in. I'm in the East Coast time zone, so this is a happy way to spend lunch hour. Today, we have this coffee chat, and we're here to talk about our experiences and your experiences and perspectives on the responsible use of AI in educational assessment. So Nina is going to help us go through structured questions and have a discussion about that. But ultimately, we hope that you, the audience, will participate, as Nina said, either through chat or through, speaking directly. We're really excited to have some engagement here. Our goal ultimately is to take the conversation that we're going to have today and apply some good old-fashioned design methodology. So using your input and insights, we're going to craft some survey items, which will then be circulated to a broader audience. A resource for professionals in the educational assessment space will be published from the results of this survey. And this is intended to support AI use within organizations and improve understanding of AI use by our client or partner organizations. I'd like to acknowledge that in June, the ATP Technology-Based Assessment Committee hosted a similar session. They've also conducted an AI survey for the past 2 years. I'll drop a link to their results in the chat. Our intention then is to complement that work with a focus on educational assessment and with your input. So with that, let's turn back to the conversation, and I believe that Nina will round us up and kick it off.
Yes, thank you, Matthew. All right, so we're going to get started with a question. Again, if you guys would like to contribute, feel free to put your comments in the chat. We're going to start with you, Walt, if you don't mind. All right. So, Walt, looking across education, assessment, credentialing, and workforce development, where are you seeing AI create the most meaningful value today? And where do you believe its potential is still largely unproven?
Okay. As I answer the questions today, I'm going to take it from a test security perspective since that's my background. So AI is delivering the most value when it helps people work faster, identify patterns, and focus their attention. In assessment, that would include helping draft and review items, summarize information, improve accessibility, identify unusual testing patterns such as response similarity, abnormal timing, or potential item exposure online. Specifically, from a test security perspective, AI is especially useful as an early warning system, and it can tell us where to look, but it cannot always tell us what happened. So I think that's a key uh, dis differentiator. Its potential is still largely unproven when AI is asked to make autonomous high stakes decisions, such as determining that a student cheated and validating a score just automatically, like making a credentialing decision without meaningful human review. So we have to keep humans in the loop. And my view is that AI is already proving itself as an assistant and analytical tool, but it is not yet proven that it should be the final decision maker. That lies with the human.
Mm, very good points, Walt. Thank you. And Debbie, did you have anything additional that you wanted to add to that?
I might have a thought or two on that.
All right.
I'm actually pretty
I
passionate about
figured.
this.
I
Pretty
figured.
passionate about this topic. It was great hearing everyone's introductions because even though I've spent time with Jesse and Walt and Matthew every other week now, it's so interesting that we come from very similar education journey backgrounds from teaching and administration and even district level positioning. But when I look at AI specifically now from that lens, so Walt's going to think about the security piece. I'm going to think about, I'll call it redefining what pathways might be, like redefining that CTE, what you're going to do or become or go out in the world. I think of myself decades and decades and decades ago, and I would want that time back if I could, because I do think that there are tools now, especially as we start to look at what content and curriculum and pathway learning looks like, and things that we just didn't maybe know how to do, even though we had it in our hearts. We wanted to do it. We had the calling to teach, we had the passion, we wanted to individualize instruction, we wanted to make learning very real and very similar to to Jesse's journey. I remember looking at 42 middle schoolers in a classroom who desperately needed me to individualize instruction and to provide content at the level of where they needed it and to also match their age and interest appropriateness. And it was really hard to do. It was hard to do. I don't think the teacher ever goes away, the educator, the human, absolutely not. But boy, I would sure love to go back with some of the data and the tools that we have now to think about how we help those kids go on their journeys to go into the careers, the college travels, even the certifications that they want to get. Um, I don't know exactly how it looks how many years from now. I don't know how any of us really know that, but I do know that I feel like I'd like to get those kids back and reteach them some of the things that I know better now about. And I also wonder why some of the content I was teaching. So I don't know, Nina, if that makes a lot of sense, but I think we're headed in the right direction. We're just always going to need the leader, the teacher, the learners, all the human parts of it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Debbie. And did anyone else have anything they wanted to add to that, Jesse or Matthew? They did cover it pretty well. All right. Oh, was Walt going to say something? No. Okay. I thought he unmuted. All right. Well, I actually have another question for you. So when we talk about adopting AI, when organizations are deciding whether they want to adopt AI, which factors do you think matter most? We have a little bit of a list. So efficiency, quality, innovation, workforce capacity, cost, competitive advantage, trust, or something else. I'm putting it in the chat so you can take a look at it.
Okay, yeah. All right. Well, look, I'm going to answer this question from us and plot. That's something I use with my day job. PLOT stands for political, legal, operational, technical. And if you look at it from that perspective and that standpoint, I think that keeps you straight and keeps you safe. But as far as the question, I mean, efficiency often drives the initial adoption, I think, especially when organizations are understaffed or facing tight timelines, or manage large volumes of content and test data. But trust determines whether that adoption actually sticks and lasts. So building trust is crucial. Um, I don't know. I think organizations slow down when they can't answer basic questions for their clients, like where is data kept? How's it stored? How's it being used? Privacy concerns, fairness, security, equity, all that stuff. Um, Cost and workforce capacity may justify the pilot, but governance and evidence determine whether AI is actually going to become operational. And one important point that I want to throw out is that AI adoption is not simply a technology decision. This gets back to the plot. You know, we need to bring everybody to the table and look at it from a political standpoint, legal, operational, and technical, procurement, training, change management. I mean, all of that is important when implementing AI.
Okay, thank you, Walt. And Matthew, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, definitely. I think, it's interesting, Walt and I coming from different perspectives in the same field. So, I take the perspective coming from working in K-12 educational assessment. One of the primary things that we think about here is, of course, trust. And trust is a pretty wide encompassing concept. So I'm going to start with trust. But I'm going to flip that around a little bit and say, what do I see driving adoption of AI? And well, there are a couple of my colleagues in this session right now, and we've heard the phrase, and there's some hand waving and having partners say, well, can't you just AI it up? Can't you just use AI to overcome some of these challenges? One of the major challenges that we have in assessment development and assessment research is simply securing data, data collection, being able to use student data for various development and research purposes. There's now, for those of you who may not be in K-12, right, there's some regulations that definitely we think about specifically that come from the US federal government. But with these data constraints, there's the idea that AI can help skirt some of these real world constraints. So it's pushing that. And it's interesting because you think about it, it's opened up the conversation really technologically. Well, when people say AI, they're usually talking about generative AI. And it's like, it's interesting because it's provided some acceptance then of these technological solutions to traditional challenges. Um, there's also the fact that we hear about all these amazing applications and transformations that AI has provided in other industry. So then there becomes the not so quiet expectation that AI can overcome those challenges in our industry as well. And that needs to, of course, be implemented thoughtfully. And Walt used the phrase governance and talked about some, I'll say, administrative concerns, not to say bureaucratic, but saying, being planful around these things. So another, I think, initiator or drive to implementation of AI in the K-12 assessment industry is we're experiencing a bit of a slow sea change in this industry, meaning that there's a variety of stakeholders, from students and parents, even all the way up through state level legislators and Department of Educations that are becoming increasingly disaffected with the traditional one-time multiple choice proficiency-based assessments. There's a desire in certain instances, of course, to get to what's termed more authentic assessment, something that looks more like an engagement task with students, something that even looks more similar to the kinds of tasks outside of an assessment that they might be able to engage in. So AI is being seen as a way to both access that, have that kind of testing experience. And then on the back end, it's opening up these psychometric alternatives that we have in terms of how do you describe student performance when the test doesn't look like a test. So there's a lot of push to be able to get in there and be able to describe and interpret student performance in new and interesting and continue to be meaningful. Um, of course, going back to trust, then, well, trust in technology has been a challenge in K-12 assessment for a long time. In fact, we have, federal legislation that I hinted at, FERPA, which I don't know the acronym off the top of my head, but it talks a lot about what the safeguards that are necessary to protect sensitive student data, personally identifiable information. And because of that, that requires a lot of scrutiny of any of the technologies and the data that get transacted. And AI definitely transacts data. So with this kind of scrutiny, it requires that regulation and governance to be very thoughtful about it. And there's some organizations that are more conservative about that approach and need to do a lot of deep diving to ensure that students are protected and that the data and information is being used appropriately. So we've got tensions on both sides then in K-12.
Okay, thank you, Matthew. Did anyone else want to add to what was? Oh, sorry, Walt. I was reading your comment. Okay. And we do have some pretty great comments in the chat. So John said that quality is most important because it builds or destroys trust. Everything else on the list of factors are important, but they have more to do with efficiency than quality. And then Olivier, I learned how to pronounce his name. Olivier, is that correct? Wonderful. All right. Olivier said, "You will not be replaced by a car, but you will be replaced by a horse who knows how to drive a car." It's true though. Whoever knows how to drive the car is getting hired. All right. And then Frank said, "All of these things are ways to describe a company's culture, and AI adaptation requires a cultural shift that needs socialization and communication." Very true. All right, and we have a couple more comments that you guys can go ahead and read, but just thought those really added to the conversation. So thank you guys. All right, Jesse, I have a question for you now about some of the concerns that we might be dealing with when it comes to AI adaptation, especially in education. So what are the most significant concerns that leaders have about AI and assessment today? And then which concerns do you believe are overestimated or misunderstood?
I'm going to pull the lens back a bit to start this, in that how education certification testing may be the same or different. Ever since No Child Left Behind, there's been a shift or a definition of the shift from this kind of the Jeffersonian ideal of citizenship and why we were doing education to being career and college ready. And I think AI is part of that shift to career and college ready, but there is also concern in the field that what we're leaving behind is that Jeffersonian ideal of citizenship and what it means to be a good citizen and how education acts to prepare citizens. I use citizen in a broad term, not just understanding the civics of the US, even though I was a social studies teacher, and will raise my fist, pumping and supporting that. But citizen of a company where you might find work. Surveys of company HR leaders repeatedly find that the skills they're looking for are, number one, communication. The ability not just to say things, but to listen and respond within a group environment. So much of career and college ready has been morphed into competition, that I have to be better than this other person, and this score means I'm better than all these other people, as opposed to indicating how well you will succeed in that career or college environment into which you are transitioning. The education division is now K-20 or pre-K 20. And one of the things in pre-K is you get gold and silver stars when you share your toys, play well with others. If you took it out, put it back. And these kinds of things are not happening in education. The idea of listening and responding and being part of a group and lifting people up, and not worried about how you are lifted up. There are concerns in education administration circles about that. Big emphasis now on how do we revive civics. And while the US assessment in education hasn't gotten to this stage yet, if you need an illustration of how important assessment is in the lives of a country, look at India today. The education minister has resigned. The government is being threatened because of assessment, and things gone wrong there. So I encourage you to look at that story. So there are a lot of education standards that can't be measured in large-scale assessment. How does AI contribute to those, to building up this other side of what it means to be a citizen? That you're not just an economic contributor, but that you are a contributor to the health and welfare of your family, your organization, and your country. Europe has defined it. In some ways, the US is lagging behind in doing that. And I think when we go to EATP, there'll be a lot of discussions about that. But Europe has grappled with this a lot more. So I have heard it often from education people that even as education, for example, the seal of biliteracy starts to look more like certification. Let's not use the other part of what education is about.
All right. Thank you, Jesse. And then
You're
Debbie, did
welcome.
you have anything that you wanted to add to Jesse's?
Well, I just didn't want Jesse to stop because I loved this conversation about citizenship. I really enjoyed that because it just echoes, I think, a lot of the work that we're all focused on in some way when we talk about durable skills or all of those pieces that are so important that we build with our children as they become young adults and go off to become candidates and get certified and go down that pathway. You know, can't believe I'm admitting this out loud. I have a 24-year-old daughter. I don't know how that happened. But, you know, we talk a lot about her first career now that she's in, and she's in the business sector. And she does really talk about things that she was not ever taught how to do, how to problem solve with a small group, how to have conflict resolution at her fingertips, how to, you know, do competency-based projects and pieces, like just the idea of Jesse's, you know, thinking there on citizenship and those tools. You know, I think what we need to all be on the lookout for is the intersection of where can AI help with the development of those skills and assess those skills and help build those skills, because it's there. We have to look for it. It can't do it alone, but it's there. And what role does education technology companies play in working with school districts and schools and educators in providing those type of tools with as much authenticity as they can, right? It's really a connection. And then, because I think a lot of us have gone through the adoptions of tools and curriculums, and I remember people coming together and adopting materials and deciding what would be good for schools and students and districts. But now we've got the new world that I've learned about in the last 3 years or so, is the organizations that are getting our students, that are helping them to get their credentials, to become the automotive expert or the dentist, or, you know, to take their language assessment. And it's really, I think, why all of us on this panel and in this group, we care about how this all comes together. But I never heard it really described around citizenship before. And that might be just a great anchoring piece, Jesse. I really enjoyed that, because I think the goal of what we're trying to produce as a newly formed group or a revitalized group of the education division is kind of guidelines, and they're guidelines for many different groups and how we come together to accomplish this. So I just really appreciated that insight, Jesse.
Mhm.
You can pay me later.
Thanks, Debbie. That
This is being
means a
recorded.
lot. I appreciate it.
And I just want to add a quick comment, Debbie, because I'm similar in age to your daughter. And when I was in
Oh,
school, we
now that just
also,
hurt, Nina. That hurt.
I was just giving context. It's just context.
I'm just kidding.
But I also don't think we really learned that. I don't think I learned anything about people skills and communication until I got to my MBA program, where they were like, when you
Yeah.
work in business, you have to know how to work with small groups and you have to know how to discuss and debate. We had a whole class on negotiation. But I'm wondering, like, that was a specific degree. And so I was concerned because ChatGPT was coming out right when I was graduating with my MBA. And I was like, I wonder with people coming up behind me, how, like, are they going to depend too much on AI and then not learn these skills? And so I think this is a really helpful conversation for me as well, just to figure out where does AI fit in? Because for me, it's like, I was writing all my papers by hand and, they're having all this help writing papers, which is not a bad thing. It's just making sure that it doesn't prevent them from being able to develop those communication skills and things like that.
100%.
Really cool to hear this conversation. All right, and then I have kind of a sub question for Jesse and Debbie and anyone else who wants to add to this. What misconceptions do we find about AI and the customer base of education?
I think a lot of their misconceptions and concerns have to do with the vetting and the level of control and the role that humans have in AI. I think they see it perhaps as some android run amok, uh, that you're Hal and you're in the spaceship and you're taking over control and you're involved in this space odyssey going somewhere where you have nothing to say about it. I think that's a lot of it. One of the things that at the consortium where I worked at WIDA was to create a quality control process where there were representatives from some of the 37 states that I got to join involved in quality control reviews, which led to other committees being formed by the consortium. But number one, I wanted quality assurance and quality control, and to have the hands-on of the SEA people involved in that. And that really lowered the temperature on the concerns about what was this consortium office doing on their behalf, because then they became the spokespeople for the other members of the board from other states that we'd issue a report, and other people could put their trust into people of similar jobs. So that worked very well. And so looking for ways to involve the stakeholders in the process is something I would encourage.
Okay, thank you, Jesse. And Debbie and
No.
anyone else, did you guys have anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I see some things in the chat too, I think that are echoing some of the thoughts that we're all kind of discussing here, and that, we've said it, we all continue to say it, it's the human part of it, right? I think there's a misconception that, this piece, this tool, this way of thinking or learning or doing, especially as I work with educators, is going to replace them. And it can't. It may give them more data that might be more personalized and individualized in a way that can allow an educator to perhaps approach curriculum and instruction individually different or small group instruction differently. I think it can give a district information across all of its schools and maybe across a state, but it's still what we do with the data, how we make professional development decisions, how we make funding investment decisions, how we look at partners that we're going to partner with or partners that we're not going to partner with. So it still is that thinking individual, whether you're in the classroom all the way to, the state superintendent of education. So I think it's the human, and the human cannot be replaced. It can't, period.
And then just piggybacking off that, I think one major misconception of AI is that it's objective and
Mhm.
not objective based on what you guys have been saying here. It reflects everything, the training data, whoever's putting in the inputs, the guardrails, the assumptions that people make, which brings it full circle to it can generate content wrong and confidently wrong, highly confidently wrong, unless it's, reviewed by humans and whatnot. So I
Right.
think those are two misconceptions as well.
And
100.
one more thing I look for is how AI literacy will enter our curriculum. How will the students we have be taught how to create it, use it, be useful consumers, wise users of it, and maybe create the AI engines of the future? How will we be addressing this in school? And yes, Debbie, I'm older. I remember using Commodore PETs as computers in classrooms, and how how fearsome of that teachers were to
Yeah.
allow computers into the classroom and to be part of their instruction. And um, they were right in terms of, when you have AI or computers, that's taking part of the power of the teacher. Teachers are very powerful people. And if you have AI score the essay, the teacher isn't. And what the teacher is giving that power to the AI tool, how do they then make use of that? And is it an appropriate sharing of power? So a lot of the discussions I've had with teachers out of this power equation and this idea of control. But again, the people who are going to be teachers 10 years from now are learning about AI in our schools. They're in high school now, and we need to be teaching them about AI and how they take control of it.
And right now, it seems like a lot of, teachers who are new to it, especially college professors and things like that, they're like, they just don't want to use because they just feel like it's a mechanism for cheating. So I think that's an important discussion to have.
Well, think of it. You still hear can't use your phone, can't use your calculator, you can't, and not saying that that's right or wrong, but it is an interesting of where we are going to head in the next couple of years, and how we will use these tools.
Mhm. Yeah, for
Now we're
sure.
going down a bad topic and chat on
Yeah.
blackboards. Jesse, I was going to show my picture of me teaching at the Raggedy Ann blackboard, but I did that once and somebody raised their hand and said, "What's a blackboard?" I was like, "Oh my goodness."
Oh, come on. We know what a blackboard is. Okay. All right. Well, we have a couple more questions, so we'll go ahead and move to Walt, if you don't mind, Walt. Um, so as AI capabilities continue to advance, what assessment decisions do you think should always remain in human hands? And then where can AI appropriately augment the professional judgment?
Well, I think just taking it again from a test security standpoint, you've got to have humans in the loop. We can't have it automatically invalidating a score. I mean, it can flag it and say it's conditional, but there's somebody that's got to get in there and look to see if the policy was indeed broken or whatnot. Um, and I don't know. I think that AI it can be good at flagging and finding again, but it's not going to be the end all be all. So again, just keeping that human in the loop is kind of a broken record, but it's very important that's the case. I mean, automation's great. It can do a lot of things automated, but is it automatically and automatedly wrong? Is it being applied wrong or inconsistently or unfairly? So just thinking about it from a test security standpoint, from assessment and invalidations and whatnot, that's how I would answer it.
So basically, humans should have the final decision. They should make.
Absolutely. Humans should have the final decision. I mean, AI may recommend, flag, compare, summarize, but humans must interpret, investigate, decide, and remain accountable at the end of the day.
Okay. What do you think, Matthew?
Well, I realize now, especially as Walt's saying that, right, human in the loop, and others have said this, and I saw Olivier, effectively mentioning this a bunch of times, like human involvement, and this is the phrase now, human in the loop. And I have what might seem a series of disconnected thoughts, and I'll try and bring them together because I think they all do go together. From outside of assessment, thinking of two things: software development and human in the loop. What does that mean? Stories coming out now of this senior software developers who are building AI agents to effectively develop and QC code, and even going into production pipeline. And so then these software developers effectively providing some degree of oversight and design, but then the AI agents are going off on their own. And, is that human in the loop? I think that engages that question of human in the loop and what does that mean? The other one was I was sharing with my colleagues here before the chat was a friend of mine down the street has a robot lawnmower, and he got it, and you can set up the lawnmower, and it's kind of like your little Roomba or whatever, but you set it up and it wanders out of your yard into the next door neighbor's yard because it understands the task, but it doesn't understand the intention. And I think that goes back to both of these situations, which is that actually, for us, what should always remain human? Well, let's promote the phrase expert in the loop. I can't claim that phrase. I've been hearing it increasingly, but I think that helps us understand it a little bit better. Expert in the loop. It captures the interaction of humans with AI, especially in this education assessment space. What it means to me is that there's a degree of complexity and creativity of our work that needs to remain with humans because, again, I saw in the chat, right? AI right now is not intelligent, right? They're connection to systems. They're predicting text and information. The history of AI tried to create symbolic systems, which is logic and ordering. And that's where humans come in. There's a whole bunch of information that we all understand and are trained on, and we understand the logical connections, cause and effect, and relationships. AI, the current AI, doesn't understand that. So this means that we need to come in and require when interpretations and consideration of sophisticated concepts and even unspoken concepts. In psychometrics, we often talk about unintended consequences. How do you know what you don't know? That's tricky. That's where experts come in. We need to be coordinating psychometrics, specific subject matter expertise, societal norms and values. Jesse's been talking a lot about citizenship and also logistics, right? The governance, the law, the legal systems that we're under, those instances where actually we have to produce tests that are paper and pencil, right? This is a lot to manage. And then we all ultimately know that working with customers, clients, stakeholders, projects turn 180 without warning. Humans can respond to that. AI, if you've been in a chat and you suddenly say, I don't want to do that, let's switch to this. Yeah, context switching is a little bit hard for it. I could say specific activities, but again, I think it's wherever there's a need for complex interaction, right? The oversight, but we start to dig in and say, there are interpretive points. It's going to challenge us to be more purposeful and thoughtful in our work because then the easy things can be used, and we got to be careful not to slip into it looking like it's making decisions for us.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Thank you, Matthew. Did anyone else want to add to that? We have some really great comments in the chat. I won't be able to read through them all, but please take a look at that. They are making some really great points. Well, okay. Have one more question for you, Matthew. And this is for Matthew, but it's also for everyone on this call because we do want you guys' input on this survey that the Education Division is developing. So, Matthew, as we develop the ATP Education Division Responsible AI Survey, what do you think are the three most important questions we should answer for our community?
Oh boy. Well, I'm really trying to farm this out to the audience and say, what do you think are the three most important? So that's what I say. The first question here is, what do you think is most important? I think we've talked here about what we think is very important. That is, um, well, summarizing, we've talked a lot about trust, right? Trust in the systems. It is a black box. And the trust also means that the humans need to be involved, right? Where and how should humans be involved? That's perhaps a second. Those go together. And I really, really like what Jesse's pointing out and some of other things that have been said here and in the chat, which is, traditional assessment has focused on, well, I say traditional, I'm a child of No Child Left Behind, or otherwise, as the New York Times called it, no psychometrician left unemployed. Those kinds of tests look very specific, and it was the shift from Jeffersonian education into career and college readiness. But now we're looking at the swing back. Well, what what should AI help us move into in assessment? How should we use AI to ensure that education and our understanding of students is well formed to be able to promote the goals that we desire? So those are some broad ideas here. This is just what I'm synthesizing from what I'm seeing, but I'd love to hear what else within the education sphere should we be addressing and asking about in a survey to your peers? What do we want to know about from each other about AI, its implementation, concerns, and potentials? Maybe I'll make a last plug here is to say about both AI and the use of AI, and also to survey design, is to approach it with a principled mindset. For those of you who are familiar, I'm a student of Bob Mislevy, so evidence-centered design and principled design, to be able to say, let's start out with our intention and interpretation first to ensure that we can support what we're doing with the tools and data that we have at hand.
Mhm. Thank you, Matthew. And if anyone has some ideas for what they think would be really useful information to get from that survey, definitely put that in the chat. And we're going to send this recording out. If you need some time to chew on it, that's totally fine. We'll have some contact information for you guys. So if you want to come back and let us know what you think, we definitely want to know what you think, because this survey is for this community. So please definitely think about what you would want, or what your organization would want out of this survey. All right, well, we only got a couple minutes left, but I do have one more question that I would like all of our speakers to touch on a little bit. And how about we start with Walt? Walt, 3 years from now, what do you think will distinguish organizations that are using AI responsibly from those that are just using AI?
So 3 years from now, I think responsible organizations will not be distinguished with how many AI tools they have or use. I think they will be distinguished by whether they can explain why AI was used, what problem is solved, like what evidence showed what worked, how students were protected, and who remained accountable. So the key question will not be where can we see AI used. It will be like, where should we use AI? What evidence should we require? And will we remain accountable?
Hmm. Thank you, Walt. Anyone else have some ideas on that?
I have two quick hits on that. First, I'd say, in 3 years, maybe this is wishful thinking. I'd love to see professionals in the assessment space perhaps using vibe coding to replace those onerous spreadsheets that we're all aware of. Like, we all have these things, somebody built them years ago, and you just got to keep using it. You say why, and then it breaks when you try to do something. You know
Ugh.
what? This puts coding tools and design in all of our hands. So let's build something more appropriate. We don't have to be shackled to the past. But I think there was also a comment in the chat too that AI really it requires and it's going to demand cultural changes. And cultural changes here, I think my organization is about 80 people, right? Everybody's got to wear multiple hats. And I think that purposeful use of AI in an organization is actually it's going to be an enabler for professionals to exercise greater diversity of involvement in their organizations. So it is really, if I think about it as a text tool, it's a superpowered encyclopedia at a minimum. It's really the democratization of information and allowing professionals to be present and impactful at more points than they had before. So I'm excited for both of those. Although I do like my spreadsheets.
All right, thank you, Matthew. And Jesse and Debbie, did you have anything that you wanted to add to that?
Um, my glib answer would be companies that are doing it right are still in business. 3 years from now, and the ones who are not won't be. It's having that big an impact.
Mm-hmm.
And Jesse stole mine because I was hoping 3 years from now, I was hoping 3 years from now that we would have that unification of technology companies and credentialing and assessment organizations, and especially the systems where our students are coming from. And I don't know how that exactly happens. I think that's why we're tackling part of this survey, because we're trying to bring the people together. But I hope the good ones are in business, Jesse. You're right, because we need them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah,
And
I think it
I
helps.
hate spreadsheets. I don't know why Matthew likes spreadsheets. Terrible.
Well, we can be sure of one thing as a result of this coffee chat, that Frank is having a good time.
Frank is.
Sure is.
We
Frank.
appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you guys. And if anyone else, again, if you have any thoughts on that last question, about, what is going to distinguish the organizations who are using AI responsibly from those who are just using AI, definitely put those thoughts in the chat. And if you just have any thoughts about what you would like, what kind of information you would like to get from this survey, we really would love to hear from you, but we'll have some information about that in the follow-up email for you to let us know at a later time as well. And we also would like to invite, well, they would like to invite you to their education division members only meeting. That is going to be this Friday, July 31st at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. So if anyone would like to join that and you are an ATP member, you can just email me in the chat and we'll get you added to the calendar invite. There are going to be future meetings, even if you're not available for this one. So just let us know if you would like to be added to that, and we'll have that in the follow-up email. We do have maybe 2 minutes if anyone has some questions that they want to ask our speakers. I didn't see too many in the chat, but
There's been a great conversation in the chat. It's really enriched everything here.
It can
I've
be
been
its own
excited.
transcript. It can
and
become
it
its
will
own
be.
standing piece. It is that good.
Yep.
And a lot of appreciation to you, Nina, from people in the chat and from all of us. You've really helped us, not only with webinars, but the coffee chats and all of the planning. So thank you very, very much. We couldn't do this without you.
I can do this without y'all, okay? Very happy to do whatever I can to help. And thank you guys so much. Thank you to the Education Division leadership, to everyone who joined today, who contributed in the chat. We are going to take your comments from the chat as well to help inform this survey. So we just appreciate you all, and we will be sharing this recording in the follow-up email, as well as contact information for our speakers if you guys have any questions that we didn't have time to get to. So thank you all so much, and I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their day.
Thank you all.
You all.
Thank you.
Take
Thanks,
care.
everyone. Bye.